Here's the rules for tonight. Waleed Shubat, you have 1 hour. After 1 hour, we have a 10-minute break to go to the bathroom, to catch our thoughts. And you come back for another hour. And and then I think after that, if you're willing, questions and answers, you're a brave man. Is that fine with you? Please give a warm welcome again to Waleed Shubat.
Thank you. I thought at first it was 1 hour. That was it. It was the plans were changed. You know what I was saying? I'll kill you. You know that new cartoonic thing? I'll kill you. That little Ahmed skeleton. Oh, good. I got the marker. You know, he was talking about Brother Chuck Smith. You know, I remember in 79, 80, I walked into Chuck Smith's church as a Muslim in Costa Mesa. We just first started over there in that church. I remember the guy was singing There's Nobody Like Jesus. And he was saying, is Muhammad like Jesus? He was singing a rock and roll song. Is Gandhi like Jesus? And as soon as I heard, is Muhammad like Jesus, I got offended and I walked out. I said, I'll never walk into those Christian churches again. I vowed I'll never walk in a church again. I made a vow to Allah that I'll never walk in a church again. And look at me. Allah didn't keep the promise to protect me from the churches. So I blame Allah. And I also want to thank Brother Chuck Missler. I was in a conference with Brother Chuck Missler, and I was concerned, to be honest, going to speak at that conference because his was a conference, probably the second time I was allowed to talk about Bible prophecy. And I said, how will they receive it? You know, Chuck Missler might not like me talking about maybe some different adjustment of our theories regarding the ends of times. They might, you know, kind of close the door in my face and I'll be kind of ousted out and be pointed at, you know, he's a strange guy with a strange interpretations. You know, you worry. You sweat blood. And then I went to the conference and he was so open. It's like, no big deal, Waleed, no problem. You're wrong, we accept you. He tells me he agrees with me, but I don't know. Americans have a way of saying things, you know. Because I learned very quickly when I came to America. I mean, I was, you know, sometimes inviting Americans to our home, you know, introducing them to some of our foreign dishes. And I remember the first time I invited Americans, and after they finished eating it, the first thing, how did you like it? And the first thing that came out of their mouth, they said, it was interesting. So I went to my wife, I says, they loved it. They thought it was interesting, sort of like intellectual dish. They just loved it. Finally, I learned what the word interesting meant. And I was crushed and hurt. Americans speak with forked tongue. But when I read the Bible, I began to also learn that the Americans really look at terminologies in the scripture and they don't get it. So like, you know, maybe I want to go over some parts of the Bible or some allegorical way of how the West thinks. All right, where's the piece of the notes? Go. Page 1. You gonna. I got 2 hours. That's why I'm doing this, you see. Must have dropped it. Oh, well, I don't need those notes anyway. The words in the Bible that, you know, I always have a stickler with Westerners is I think I mentioned it in the beginning of the service, in the second service, I believe. I talked about the word the mountains in the Bible. The word mountains in the Bible, most Westerners would identify as a literal mountain. So when you go to the book of Revelation and you read, there is a woman riding on a beast, and the beast has 7 heads. There are also 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, to Westerners, that becomes the Vatican, or it becomes Rome, because Rome sits on 7 hills. So the Vatican is pointed out as the harlot. But may I ask, it says 7 heads. How are these 7 heads? And also it says these mountains are 7 kings. So what do kings rule? Kings don't rule mountains. You have made the allegory literal, and you made the literal allegory. Kings rule kingdoms. So there are 7 kingdoms on which the woman sits. There are also, 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And if you look at all the allegories in the Bible regarding the usage of the word mountain, you'll find them to be kingdoms. In fact, in Daniel 2, I saw the stone that was cut without hands, smote the image at the feet, and the stone grew to become a great mountain. So the stone is the Messiah. The Messiah becoming a great mountain is becoming a great kingdom, or the kingdom of Christ that fills the whole earth. Pastor's giving me that look, now he approves. Because I forgot to say his kingdom rules the whole world. So his kingdom rules the whole earth. So a mountain is a kingdom. In fact, he said if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can move the mountains. Westerners never thought about what that means. They always think, oh yeah, every time I go to a conference, I ask Americans, what do you think he moves the mountains? If you have faith of a mustard seed, how can you move the mountains? And I always get such generalized answers. You get through your troubles, your turmoils and your tribulations. Another hand raises up, and it's my mother-in-law, it's my our debt problem, my financial problem, Christian finance. All kinds of, different interpretations here. It's like anything goes in the West. No, he's very specific. If you have faith of a mustard seed, you can change the kingdoms. You can change kingdoms. You can change governments. Okay? Literal. So once you understand that the Bible is not really an allegoric book, it really means business. It means specific things. The mountains bows to Christ when he comes. The mountains bow to you in the Psalms. The rivers flows to you. Rivers don't flow to the Messiah, neither does mountains bow. God will remove the mountains. He doesn't remove mountains. My sheep scattered through the mountains. Sheep don't scatter. The Jews didn't scatter up in the mountains. They went to countries and nations. In fact, Ahmadinejad, in his speech, he says, and Islam will rise over all the mountains. I can show it to you on video. Everybody in the East knows what mountains is. Mountains are kingdoms.